Hi, in this video we want to talk about the organization of our view controllers for our parts room application. So what I've done is put up a storyboard that outlines the structure of our application, at least from the point of view of what we talked about in our discussion at the end of the last unit. So we have a main view controller here that is a tab bar controller. We have a navigation controller on our parts side, and it has a table view controller as its root view controller, and its title is parts list. And then we also have an assembly side here, and this is just a view controller as a placeholder for now. So I want to look at each of these components and how they're set up with view controller classes in our application. So let's look at our navigator bar, and we'll zoom in on this whole picture. So the first thing we have is a main view controller class. Now this class is going to be the main point of instantiation for our model. We can see that we have our model here, and I put the models into a group in Xcode called model, and I've also put the user interface elements into a different group here called user interface, or UI. So the main view controller H&M is the class that's going to instantiate the model. And for now, I've got part.h, partscatalog.h, and inventory.h here in my model, or in my view controller. Now, we've already talked about the importance of having one controller, one view controller, let's say, or a controller class that instantiates the model as its single point of contact between the model and all the views in the application. And that's what we've done here. This is an instance of UI tab bar controller, so it corresponds to that first tab bar controller. In the storyboard, I have set up in that tab bar controller, and I'll select it here. If I look at the tab bar controller's custom class, it is main view controller. So the tab bar controller has two view controllers, and that's the initial setup, of course. And I've replaced the first view controller in that tab bar controller with a navigation controller. And we know that navigation controllers, by default, come with a table view. So here's the table view. Now, this table view controller is this table view controller here is bound to parts list view controller, which I can see here. Okay, so the question is, if I'm going to instantiate the model entirely within main view controller, which I'm going to do, how am I going to get back from the parts list view controller to the main view controller to get to the model in order to display a parts list? Well, for now, I don't have anything set up in this parts list, but let's look at parts list view controller. Parts list view controller is simply a UI table view controller which adopts two protocols, the UI table view delegate and the UI table view data source. I've got one method here as a testing method to see if I can get back to my main view controller in this view controller. So if I look at the implementation of that method, that is, let's see, up here. It is the say hi pressed. I have a little bar button item up in the menu. It is UI bar button item, of course, sender. It's an IB action method. So it is wired to this little button up here that says say hi. So the idea here is that I want this button to really pass through to a method in the main view controller to execute a method there. I know that if this test works, then I can get to anything in the main view controller. Well, we already know that we don't want to instantiate the main view controller from here. That would be bad because that would give us a different instance of the main view controller, and that's not what we want. We don't want to instantiate the model here or any part of it. In other words, we want to display the catalog, but we won't instantiate it here. What we have to do is go all the way back up through the chain of view controllers to get to the main view controller. We could very easily do this through delegation, but there's another way that I want to show you. In partslistviewcontroller.h, I've defined a symbolic constant called main controller. And all I'm doing here is I'm casting self.navigationcontroller.tabBarController, which is the hierarchy all the way up to our main view controller. I'm casting that, downcasting it in this case, as of type main view controller, and I've defined that as a constant. This is a convenience so that I don't have to type all of this stuff every time I want to get to it. All I have to do is import main view controller and then define a symbolic constant for our main controller. Now, probably what I'll do is just import main view controller and then define this symbolic constant in the main view controller's header file. It wouldn't make any difference because I don't want to have to define this or do a if and def or something like that. I just want this constant to be available in all of my subsidiary view controllers. So now, that symbol is always going to be evaluated by the preprocessor to a downcast self.navigationcontroller.tabBarController to main view controller, so that when I use that main controller in my say hi press method, it will execute something called say hi on the main view controller. And say hi, of course, is a public method, void say hi, and then it just says a printf. So this is a simple test to make sure that I can get to my main view controller from my parts list view controller or anywhere else I need to get back to my main view controller. Again, I've instantiated parts catalog if it doesn't exist by lazily instancing it using an overrided getter. So we've done this several times. I've also changed parts catalog so that in it, if you'll pardon the pun, actually instantiates self.listing in the parts catalog. Self.listing, remember, is our mutable set of part numbers, and it's initialized with an initial capacity of 10. Okay, so when we run the application, even though I don't have any parts being displayed in the parts list, I can still verify that I can get back to my main view controller from anywhere I want to. So if I click say hi, it says main view controller says hi. And this is a verification that my idea here, as far as how I'm going to get back to that main view controller that instantiates the model, and by the way, is the only place that the model gets instantiated, is working. Thank you very much.